Yo, what is going on, YouTube? I hope you guys are doing fantastic today. Today, we're bringing you guys a support tips video. I've got 10 tips here that I think can help you guys either climb, ranked, get better, or just whatever, like something that you just want to see what like SPL level supports are doing, rank level supports are doing, the high level ones, what they are doing that makes them so much better. But I've got 10 tips for you. Learn them. Number 1, understanding the 2v2s of your god. This is very, very easy to do when you have less gods in your god pool. If you stick to 3, 4, 5 supports, it's very easy to know 2v2s of those 3, 4, 5 gods instead of the entire support cast, the entire ADC cast. It's very easy to do it when you have less gods, but understanding the 2v2 of your gods. Do you outpush? Do you outfight? Do you just want to farm because your late game is insane and all you want to do is just get to that point to win the game? Understand what your 2v2 does, understand what their 2v2 does, and do what your team needs to be done, what your team needs done. If you're playing with an Izanami, you don't fight very well, but boy, do you push. Rama, you don't fight very well, but you push pretty well. On her, you fight very, very well, but your clear is terrible. So, what does Izanami want to do against an on her? She wants to push the wave and fight inside of the wave because Honor does not fight inside of the wave well at all. Honor, on the other hand, he wants to fight when the wave is dead. He wants to fight when there's nothing adding up to damage against him because Honor's his kit just works well in 1v1s, 2v2s. Izanami's works when there's just a massive wave there. Obviously, once you get to like mid-game, Izanami fights a little bit better. But in the early game, her strength comes in pushing the waves and farming and pushing the waves and fighting when their wave is dead and when yours is alive. So, a little tip, if you're playing against an Izanami, let her push. You are not out pushing the Izanami. I don't care what you're playing. You're not out pushing her. Just back up. Same thing when people went like the mannequin Sylvanas. Just back up. Just give them it. Who cares? It's one wave. You will never lose the game off of not out pushing wave 1. There it is. Tip number 1. Tip number 2, know where the best ward spots are at each point of the game. So, the best ward spots. In the early game, the best ward spots are to avoid ganks. If you have pressure, warding up top over here is a very good spot. It covers this area right here. So if they do gank, they have to walk all the way around. Second good spot. Usually what I do when I'm playing with Stu is I ward up here and Stu wards back here. Right about here. Covers right here. If he does gank, he has to walk all the way around over there. This is in the early game. If you keep those wards consistent, perfect. Off your first back. Hey, the minions are spawning. Off your first back, very good wards are right here.
Ooh, a little light in the darkness. Never
right here is also a good spot that I like too, but I think this one is a little better because of a lot of people walk through this spot when they gank. Right here is very good. And if your ADC isn't getting deep wards, warding about up here is good. Forgot where I put the ward on. And warding around mid is always good. You can ward here. Warding red is one of the best things you can do. Keeping timers. This is the mid game. Hopefully Hades doesn't kill me here. No way he chases me, right? Oh, he's going to chase me. Warding back camps. Always good. Knowing that the enemy jungler is here is always sick. And then once you're getting to team fights and you're going for this fire giant, wards here, here aggressively, on fire obviously with the sentry. Back here's a good point. See if somebody's flanking. Dude, Hades, you gotta leave me alone. If you're on the back foot, look at how much pressure they've got. Warding here is sick. Warding over here, and then you never want to get flanked. You never want to get flanked. If you can get a ward over here, even like back here if you need to, always good places to ward. If you're on the complete back foot, getting absolutely stomped.
I shall rise again.
Yeah, if you're on the complete back foot and you're just getting stomped in the mid game, just ward this line just about right here. Get a ward here, a ward somewhere in this area. I think this is probably one of the best spots for it. Right here. And then a ward right here. If you can maintain those spots when you're on the back foot, usually you're under towers, you can know where their jungler is. So that's a little bit of ward help for you guys. If you guys got any more questions about warding, you can ask in the comments below. He finished his med, okay. Number 3, have an idea of what you're building when you load into the game. If you have to, transition it if need be. If maybe their mid laner's alive, you need an early heart word. Their support's alive, the heart word helps. Their jungler's been ganking you a lot, maybe you need to get that Sov. Whatever it is, but just have an idea of what you're building loading into that game. Fafnir's very good around objectives. Build that Shoguns early. Do you want to play for early aggression? Build that binding into then either a Thebes, a Sov, whatever else after that. But just have an idea of what you want to build before going into the game. Understand at what point you want to upgrade your relics. Relics right now are very, very strong. If you guys want like a kind of a complete guide on relics, let me know. But just know when the strength of relics happen, when you want to level them up, when you want to get into them level 2 for that extra cooldown, and when you want to finish them, stuff like that. But yeah, number 3, know what you're going to build, know when to upgrade your relics. And if you want to build Oracle Chalice, I think it's really sick and ranked because you can just spam out wards. It might put you a little bit behind, but it's usually worth it. Number 4, just way back at the beginning, what's the support's job at its root? What does the support want to do? Number 1, in the early game, you're playing for dual lane and you're playing to get your ADC a lead. Whether that's through kills, farm, letting him solo a little bit more because you got an early kill. Whatever it is, you want to place your ADC gets a lead. That is the support's job in the early game. In the mid game, getting wards up so your team is able to play into those favorable positions. If you're defending an objective or going for an objective, you want to have those wards down in that Gold Fury pit area. On the red buffs, if you're going for an invade, you want to ward where your team is looking to play. And you want to ward so the enemy jungler doesn't get a lot of ganks off. Those are your 2 jobs in the mid game. And then late game, you have 1 job, and it's either engage or peel your backline. And this is all dependent on who you're playing. Gods like Yamoja kind of does both well, but she does a lot better peeling. She's not as good diving. Gods like Terra, same thing. Does really well peeling, does really well diving. But if you're playing Kabrakan, why are you trying to peel? Baby, get that blink. Pop your 1 and find somebody to stun. That is your job. You are engaged. You are starting the fight. You're looking for a pick before this fight even breaks out. That is your job as Kabrakan. That is your job as Bacchus. So know what god you're playing and know what your support job is in that late game. Number 5, recognize when you can no longer help your teammates. Too many times, and I'm very guilty of this also, too many times I see people just walking up and inting with their solo lane teammate who's proxying between the tier 1, tier 2, and your jungler's dead also. If your teammate is dead, it is not worth for you to go get it. Support's farm right now is very, very limited, but if you get ahead as a support, you can carry games with how OP these relics are and how OP your early game is. Your life is worth maybe slightly less than your team, like everyone else on your team, but you're still worth a lot. Don't just throw your life away, especially if your teammate is guaranteed dead. 6. This one is another very low level thing, very mid level thing. It's not as rampant in the upper levels, but don't spam your abilities in the laning phase. Or even in the mid and late game. If you have no MP5, no mana, don't spam your abilities. Mana is as big of a resource as health is. If you have no mana, you are useless. If you have no health, you are useless. Keep your mana up high, keep your health up high. Use your abilities when you see fit and when it makes sense to use them. Don't just use them to use them. Don't just because your ability's coming up, don't just use it. Number 7, don't overstay on your backs. If you're low, just reset. Be healthy on the map. If you're low, your team is essentially fighting a 4v5. If you have a ton of gold in your hand, just back. Your team is fighting a 4v5. If you've got 2k gold in hand and you're only 1 item deep, back for that second item, come out strong, get your wards, ward up. Don't overstay on your backs, get your backs off. Number 8, off those backs, fight on your spikes. Fight on item spikes, fight on level spikes. With number 1, if you just backed, you finished your Sov, you're at 5 minutes into the game, you should be taking 90% of fights. You are nearly unkillable. Mid laners don't do enough damage at that point unless they have flat pen, which is a little bit of a weird situation, but then just don't fight around the mid laner. But if that mid laner has a Chronos Pendant and you have Sov and they've got 4 physicals, you should be spamming attack the red buff. You should be getting wards up to invade. If you just got your Thebes, that is something you want to farm for. But your Thebes, once you have 30 stacks on it, 40 stacks on it, and they're just finishing their Thebes or something like that, fight on that spike. You are 40 protections deep and they are 0. Know your level spikes, know your item spikes. For level spikes, there's probably 3 really big level spikes in all of Smite. Or I'll say 4. 4 big item spikes or level spikes. Level 2, level 3, level 5, and level 20. At level 2, you have twice as many abilities as the enemy in your 2v2. At level 3, you have 6 to their 4. At level 5, you have an ultimate and they do not. And then at level 20, a lot of the times you're finishing your starter items. If you're support, it's level 17. But know your team's level spikes also. If your mid laner Zeus has level 20 and he just backs and he finishes his alternate timeline, fight on that spike. That is a spike you are getting and they are not. That is when you are as strong as you can be and they are as weak as they can be. But fight on your spikes. Number 9. Know what your god is intended to do. Fenrir and Serket were a big case last year. If you're playing Fenrir and Serket, and if you're just farming and you're just playing for the late game, you are not playing your character correctly. Fenrir and Serket are played because of how much aggression they have and how good they are at that aggression. If you're playing Ymir, these gods play well into the late game, but if you're playing Ymir, your early game is obnoxiously good sometimes. If you have a good matchup, play up. Your god is intended to wall off an escape and then walk at them for a freeze and a free kill. If you're playing Emoja, you look for an ult where you can block off their escape. If you're playing Xing Chen and they have a dash or something, you wait for that dash to be down and then you ult them because they're forced to beads, or you 2 them and they're forced to beads. If you're playing Terra, if they're 4-man grouped, your team is at least somewhat ready for the engage. Say attack, blink in, get the 4-man ult. There's some things these characters excel at, and you need to know what that is and you need to do it. Number 10. Easiest one, but it's also something that's very hard to do in the moment. You need to stare at your map. Now, not literally stare at it, but if you're playing the game, you need to look at it about every 5 seconds. What Zap said was he says that you should look at your map every time you're autoing a camp or a minion or not hitting an enemy god or trying to hit an enemy god. Auto a little bit, do something, whatever you need to do, make sure you're hitting the thing, look at the map. Track where the jungler is. You see where the jungler is. You see where the solo laner is. You know that information. You store that information. You now are just going to be better off than if you don't look at the map. You need to know that information and you need to make use of it. But there it is. 10 tips to help you guys in support. If you guys got any questions, any comments about it, let me know in the comments below. If you got any questions or any other videos you want to see, let me know also. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. See ya.